Welcome back to Pindrop Perspectives. On this week's episode, Mark and Jen take a deep dive into the violent underworld through an array of short films known as the Double Series. Let's not waste any time and turn it over to Mark.
All right, so are you ready to dive into some more Pindrop entertainment? We're going to be taking a look at their Double Series today. And there's 3 short films, right? And they're packed with more twists and turns than, a back alley poker game.
Oh, yeah. Intrigue is definitely the name of the game here for sure. What sources do we have to work with for these?
Well, you shared the 3 short films themselves with me. Double Cross, Double or Nothing, and Double Shot. And I have to say, they're like individually wrapped pieces of a puzzle, each one satisfying on its own, but like really wanting to be connected into a bigger picture.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to unpack. We've definitely got our work cut out for us. So why don't we start unraveling this whole web of mystery, starting with Double Cross?
Yeah, okay, so imagine this. A dimly lit room, a man named David is tied to a chair, bloodied and bruised, and then there's this terrified nurse, Kelly, who's caught in the middle. It's like one of those things that grabs you right from the first scene.
It totally does. The tension is like, it's so thick you could cut it with a knife. You're just thrown into this unsettling situation and you're forced to question everything, right? Like, who is David? Why is he being tortured? What is Kelly even doing there? What's her connection?
Right. And as the story unfolds, we learn that David's under immense pressure to give up information from this really sensitive file that belongs to the Attorney General, specifically a witness list. And you get the feeling that lives are at stake here. And then there's a shadowy figure, right? This guy they only call Mr. Cross. And he seems to be orchestrating everything but like always from the shadows.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating is how the film plays with what you expect. At first, you kind of think that David's the victim, but as we see him manipulate Kelly, he even uses her compassion against her. So it becomes pretty clear that he's not just trying to survive. This guy is actively working to protect Mr. Cross and the entire organization, even if it means someone innocent has to die.
It's such a chilling turn of events. And the moment when he just eliminates Kelly, right after she helps him escape, it just solidifies how ruthless this guy is. It's like his desperation has pushed him past any kind of moral boundaries.
Totally. It speaks to a larger theme that I think runs through all these films, It's this idea that survival in this world comes at a really steep moral cost. There's a sense that these characters are always being tested, and the choices that they make really tell you a lot about their true nature.
It's interesting that you say that the way they use light and shadow in Double Cross, it really adds to that feeling of moral ambiguity.
Yeah.
It's like the dimly lit room, David's face is half hidden in darkness. It creates this constant sense of unease. Like you're not really sure if you can trust anything you're seeing.
That's a great observation. The filmmakers are definitely playing with those visual cues on purpose, right? To kind of mirror the themes of the story. You're never 100% sure who to trust, and the cinematography really reinforces that.
Absolutely. And speaking of uncertainty, let's move on to Double or Nothing, where the stakes get even higher and the game gets way more complex.
Okay, so we go from a dimly lit room to this smoky backroom poker game. I'm really curious to see how the change in setting affects the power dynamics.
Well, this time around, we're introduced to Mr. Franklin, who's a gambler, but he's very, unflappable. He finds himself in this high-stakes poker match against a mysterious guy. All they call him is the Man in Black. The atmosphere is thick with tension, and you really get the sense that every card that's dealt is like a power move.
Yeah, and I was really struck by how this film plays with the classic underdog story, At first it seemed like Mr. Franklin is losing, but you can tell there's this hidden strength beneath his calm exterior. He's not just playing cards, he's playing his opponent and letting himself be underestimated while he carefully plans his own victory.
It's like he's always thinking one step ahead, using the poker game as a distraction for this much bigger power play. And that reveal at the end that he was in control the whole time, it completely changes how you see his character.
It's a classic example of a false protagonist, In cinema, at first you're led to believe that Mr. Franklin's in trouble, but it's all misdirection. It's a really clever way to heighten the impact of that ending. It's a classic technique, really. It keeps the audience guessing and flips their expectations on their head.
And it works really well here. You're literally sitting on the edge of your seat wondering if he's going to pull it off, and then bam, he just flips the script.
Right.
Talk about a power move.
Right, and this power move seems to connect back to Mr. Cross, remember him, the puppet master from Double Cross. There's these little snippets of conversation that hint at a power struggle between them, like Mr. Cross wants to expand his territory and Mr. Franklin is pushing back.
Yeah, it's like they're both fighting for control, but they have very different styles. Mr. Cross is all about manipulation from the shadows, but Mr. Franklin's more direct, like willing to take action when he has to.
Exactly. And the film definitely doesn't shy away from showing the violence that's part of all this, right? The scene where Mr. Franklin takes out the man in black is brutal and unflinching. It's a pretty stark reminder that in this world, your actions have consequences, and power usually comes from force.
And it really sets the stage for an even bigger confrontation, right? In the final film, Double Shot. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about something you mentioned earlier, the sound design in Double or Nothing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The way they use sound to build tension is masterful. The shuffling of cards, the clinking of chips, people whispering, it all builds up to this crescendo of anticipation that mirrors the stakes getting higher and higher. And then there's that gunshot. Sudden, jarring, shocking, and incredibly effective.
It's like the sound itself becomes part of the story, It makes each scene feel so much more intense.
Now Double Shot takes us out of those shadowy back rooms and into this bar that seems pretty ordinary, but I think in this world, appearances can be deceiving.
You're totally right about that. So let's take a look at Double Shot and see how this setting that seems so normal becomes the stage for even more betrayal and violence.
If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe to Pindrop Perspectives for weekly new episodes, and make sure to follow Pindrop Entertainment on social media. You can find Pindrop on X, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. All right, Jen, the floor is yours.
So we went from a dimly lit room right to that smoky back room, and now we're in this bar in Double Shot. Seems pretty ordinary at first glance. It's a pretty big shift in setting. It's almost like they're trying to, lull us into a false sense of security, before they unleash the next round of craziness.
I know what you mean. It's true. It's like they're playing with us again, so setting up this contrast between normal everyday life and this underlying sense of threat. And we see Mr. Franklin again, cool and calculating as always, but now he's hanging out with Leo and Sam, who owns the bar. The atmosphere is almost lighthearted at first, just casual talk and drinks flowing.
Yeah, but there's this tension, wouldn't you say? You can practically feel Mr. Franklin's paranoia. He's always looking over his shoulder, suspicious of everyone, he's sure there's a snitch somewhere.
Yeah. And then there's that battle of Crown Royal, the good shit, like he calls it. It's like that thing, Chekhov's gun, right? You just know it's going to be important later on in the story.
Totally. It's such a classic example of foreshadowing, The Crown Royal becomes this symbol of having a good time, but also impending doom. And it turns out Mr. Franklin's paranoia isn't misplaced at all.
Nope. Because things take a dark turn really fast. Leo gets dragged out of the bar and shot. And Sam, the bar owner, he gets poisoned with that same Crown Royal. It's like the whole scene explodes with violence, and it totally shatters that feeling of normalcy that they built up so carefully.
Yeah, the way they edit this scene is really interesting. All those quick cuts, the sound design, the sudden bursts of violence, it's like they're trying to disorient you, put you right there in the middle of the chaos.
You really do feel like you're in the middle of it, You can feel how scared the characters are, how desperate. And it makes you wonder who's behind it all. Could it be Mr. Cross finally making his move? Or is there someone else pulling the strings, someone we haven't even met yet?
Well, if we think back to Double or Nothing, we do get a clue. We learn that Sam's father, Mark, was a close associate of Mr. Franklin, totally loyal to him. But Sam, kind of like that man in black, represents this new generation that Mr. Franklin doesn't really trust.
So it's not just about getting rid of threats, is it? It's about holding on to power, making sure his control is absolute. And maybe it's even about clinging to the past, back when loyalty actually meant something.
Exactly. Mr. Franklin's he's caught between two worlds. He's trying to hold on to the old ways, where your word was your bond, but the world around him is changing, right? This new generation, guys like Sam and that man in black, they're playing by a different set of rules. They're ambitious, they're ruthless, and they don't mind shaking things up.
And Mr. Franklin sees that as a threat, a direct threat to his power.
Right.
He's not just taking out rivals, he's trying to stop a rebellion before it even starts. He has to reassert his dominance because it feels like the world's slipping away from him.
Yeah, and that last scene where he's getting ready for war and says Cross is coming, it's chilling. It's more than just a threat. It's like he's making a promise. He knows the confrontation is coming, and he's preparing for a fight.
It's one of those endings that leaves you wanting more. Right? You got to know what happens next. Will Mr. Franklin and Mr. Cross finally go head-to-head? Who's going to come out on top?
It's the big question, isn't it? And the filmmakers have done such a great job building up the suspense, setting the stage for this epic showdown. We've seen the brutality, the betrayals, how quickly alliances change, and that constant threat of violence. And it feels like everything's heading for a breaking point.
It does. But before we get lost in all the what-ifs, I think we need to take a step back and think about the bigger picture. What are these films really trying to say?
I agree, Beyond all the plot twists and turns, there's something deeper here, something about power, about loyalty, about the choices we make when we're backed into a corner.
So let's dive into that, shall we? Because if we want to understand the Double series, I think we need to figure out what makes these characters tick. Okay, so we've gone from that tense interrogation, right, in Double Cross, to the poker game in Double or Nothing, and then bam, that crazy violence in Double Shot. Each film just keeps getting more and more intense, but they also have all these really interesting themes layered in there.
And yeah, when you think about why the characters do what they do, those themes really stand out. I think at the heart of it all, it's about trust, or maybe more like the fact that you can't really trust anyone in this world that they've created.
It's true. Like in Double Cross, when David just betrays Kelly, even though she risked everything to help him, it's brutal. You realize that in this world, being loyal to someone can actually get you killed.
But it's not just about individuals betraying each other. The whole system seems like it's built to make people not trust each other.
Sure.
Like in Double or Nothing, you have Mr. Franklin and the Man in Black. They supposedly work for the same organization, but in the end, they're enemies.
And then Double Shot just takes it to another level. Franklin gets rid of Sam, and his father was totally loyal to him. It shows you that even if you were loyal in the past, it doesn't mean anything when people are hungry for power.
You get the feeling that Mr. Franklin's stuck in the past, like he's trying to live by a code that doesn't exist anymore. Back then, people kept their word, they respected each other. But the world's moved on, and guys like Sam and the Man in Black, they're playing a whole different game.
That's why he's trying to force everyone to follow these old rules that nobody cares about anymore. And that's what leads to all the violence and tragedy. It's because he can't adapt.
It's interesting, they're showing this clash between the old ways and the new ways, and they're doing it in this really cool criminal underworld setting. It's not just a crime story. It's about how people act and what motivates them.
Yeah, and they're doing it using all these really cool filmmaking techniques, the lighting, the sound, the editing. It all comes together to create this atmosphere that just pulls you in and makes you feel uneasy. It's really effective.
It's true. You're always on edge, wondering what's going to happen next, who's going to betray who. It's what keeps you hooked.
Okay, so we talked about how nobody can trust anyone, how the old ways are clashing with the new ways, and how they use all these cool techniques to tell the story. But what does it all mean? Like, for us watching these films, what are we supposed to get out of it?
I think these films make us think about some stuff that's maybe not so comfortable, about human nature and what people are capable of. They show us how easily trust can be broken, how having power can change people for the worse, and how doing desperate things can make people really cruel.
It also makes you think about what loyalty and betrayal really mean. Like in a world where you can't tell who's on your side, how do you know who to trust? And what would you do to survive? Would you cross a line?
Those are questions that stick with you, long after the films are over. And that's how you know these films are good. They're not just entertaining, they make you think and question things.
So while we're waiting for the next film in the Double series to come out, I think it's good to keep those questions in mind. Who can you really trust? Where do you draw the line? And what happens when the world changes faster than you can keep up?
Yeah, this has been a really great deep dive into the Double series. We found all these hidden meanings, talked about these complex themes, and looked at how they use filmmaking to make these films so awesome.
Yeah, we've seen betrayals, power struggles, and just how dangerous it can be when you can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling the next part of this story is going to be even crazier.
Until then, stay sharp, keep your eyes open, and remember, in this world, everyone's got an angle. Everyone's playing a double game.
If you were intrigued by the Double series, you can watch both Double Cross and Double or Nothing on YouTube today by visiting Pindrop Entertainment's channel. Until next week, keep your perspective open. Artificial intelligence was used to assist in generating audio content for this episode.